Hi, my name is Ethan Shotz, and this is the Backbone Ribcage. The Ribcage is a mod kit that allows you to attach almost any lens you want to your GoPro Hero 3 or Hero 3 Plus Black Edition. I've spent the past month or so playing with this, and it's pretty incredible because I've never really been fond of that fisheye look of the GoPro, and I've really only used it for my DJI Phantom. But other than that, as a filmmaker, I really haven't had much use for it. There has been only one other option similar to this by a company out of California called Radiant Images, and they have a camera that they've modified, which is the GoPro, and they call it the Novo. But that thing runs for about $300 a day or about $900 a week just to rent it. And that's pretty ridiculous. You can get the Ribcage, which comes in two options. You can get the mod kit or you can get the pre-modified GoPro. The mod kit is about $250 and the pre-modified camera is about $850. I went with the mod kit, and if you do go this route, just as a word of warning, if you have little to no experience taking apart or repairing electronics, I don't recommend this, and you might as well go with the pre-modified version, because if you kill or damage your $400 GoPro, Backbone is not responsible, and you will most definitely void your GoPro warranty. Now, I have some experience with phone repair and computer repair, and I felt my palms actually getting pretty sweaty during the modification. First of all, I screwed up the very first step and stripped one of the screws trying to even open the dang thing. Kind of made a mistake. Turns out that the tools that they give you are not the tools that you need to remove the Torx screws. Another thing is some of the instructions in the Backbone assembly video were a bit hard to follow, and I had to do a little guessing at times because my camera seemed to be a little bit different than the camera they were modifying in the video. So that was pretty scary because the parts inside the GoPro are so delicate, and even if you tear a little ribbon cable, you're pretty much screwed because there are no extra parts available for this thing. But I did find the reassembly to be much easier than the actual take apart. So once I got everything apart, it was pretty much smooth sailing from there. I definitely recommend the PDF assembly guide because it goes into a little more detail than the video itself, and it's a little easier to follow. Here are some of the parts left over after the modification. Got the GoPro lens, the face plate, and the mid-frame, but pretty much everything else is still inside the GoPro. Let's take a look at some of the primary features of the Ribcage. The first being the removable tripod plate on the bottom here. It's got 3 1/4 inch mounting holes. And then the second feature, and the most important of all, is the lens mount on the front here. The Ribcage allows you to attach 3 different types of lenses: C mount, CS mount, and M12 mount lenses, all of which are screw-on type lenses. Because these lenses have a different flange distance, the distance between the back of the lens and the sensor, the Ribcage includes 2 different rings: the smaller 5mm C mount ring, this wider CS mount ring, and the M12 mount is inside here. I wanted a versatile lens to start with, so the guys over at Backbone actually recommended that I go with this TUS Vision f1.8 CS mount 4.3mm to 13mm zoom lens. It's a mouthful. Overall, I've been pretty happy with this, and it's given me pretty good results. The build quality is very good. Very smooth focus and aperture ring. This seems to be sold under several different manufacturers, but you can find it on B&H for about $260. I was very, very fortunate to actually find this one on eBay for about $80, and it was in perfect condition. I recommend going to Backbone's website and reading their lens guide for more information. Now, if you're wanting to use your standard 35mm lenses, you're going to need an adapter kind of like this. This is a Canon to C or CS mount adapter, and it screws right onto the CS mount ring here, like so. Got this off eBay for about 20 bucks. And keep in mind that if you're going to be using a 35mm lens, you're going to have a crop factor of 5.7 on this camera, because the GoPro has a sensor size of 1/2.3, and it's much smaller than your standard DSLR sensor. For example, if you're using this 50mm lens here, that's going to be an equivalent to a 285mm lens. And if you go any longer than that, you're going to have quite a bit of vibration in your footage. My favorite lens was actually this 35mm Nikon lens, which is equivalent to a 200mm lens, and that's much easier to handle. I found that Backbone's support is very good, so you can even send them a Twitter message or email, and they're very quick at responding and giving the right advice. Another feature of the Backbone is the ability to remove the IR filter, which is typically a permanent feature in pretty much most other cameras in the market. The IR filter basically just filters out infrared light, and when removed, you have the ability to shoot night vision. Backbone gives you two options. You can either install the IR filter permanently, or you can install it so it's removable. I've installed it so it's removable, but I found some issues with that. Because the IR filter is held in by this plastic piece inside the CS mount ring, I found that when removing lenses, the ring would actually start to unscrew, and before I realized it, it would do that. And at one point, I almost lost it in the grass. So there is a small set screw inside the CS mount ring, which is supposed to prevent it from unscrewing, but I found that doesn't do a very good job, especially when I've really tightened a lens on there. This is the setup I primarily lugged around most of the time. And this is a PNC gearbox. And because this camera's so small, this thing really helped me keep the camera stable. I had this Rode stereo video mic attached, along with my LP-E6 2 GoPro charger, which kept my GoPro charged for about 2+ hours. And you can see the tutorial on how to make that here. So I primarily switched between 24 frames a second, 120 frames a second, and 240 frames a second. I didn't really feel the need to go up to 2.7K or 4K modes, mainly because they aren't really a necessity for me. Plus, I'm mostly interested in capturing that sweet slow motion that I've been dreaming of for so long. One of the biggest limitations is the GoPro's auto exposure. And I found that especially in low light situations, the camera would try to compensate for the low light and try to brighten up the image, in turn making it really noisy and grainy and ugly, and pretty much made it useless. So I did find a trick though. If I stopped down almost all the way, I could almost force the camera to stay at a lower exposure level. For example, when I was shooting the fire dancers, I noticed that when they would blow the fire, it would actually go from very dark to very bright. So the camera would try to compensate for that, and it would try to lower that exposure when that brightness would come up. So by stopping down, I was able to force the camera to stay at one set exposure, which really pulled out the detail in those flames. So there you go. Check out the footage and decide for yourself if it's worth it to you. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Shotz, or subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment below. So thank you.